The galaxy was burning. The Varnak Alliance, once proud and powerful, was falling apart. Their fleets were scattered, their worlds in flames, their enemies closing in. For years they had fought the Krail Dominion, a race of ruthless conquerors who spared no one. Now the last remaining stronghold, the world of Solkar, was under siege. Admiral Rathar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 eyes staring at the holodisplay filled with red enemy markers. His voice trembled as he said, "Send the SOS, all channels, all frequencies. Someone must hear us." The communication officer hesitated. "Admiral, the Deathworlders sector is within the transmission range. If the signal reaches them," Rathar growled. "I do not care, send it." And so a cry for help. A desperate call filled with fear, pain and hope raced into the endless dark. Across 1,000 light years through dust and radiation, the signal drifted. Most species ignored it. Some didn't dare respond. Others were too far to care. But deep within a silent corner of space on a blue planet circling a yellow star, old sensors woke up. Earth received the signal. Inside the United Terran Fleet Command, alarms rang. An AI voice spoke coldly. "Unidentified distress call detected. Origin, Varnak sector. Priority, red." Admiral Helena Ward entered the control room, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "Play it," she ordered. The room fell silent as the message echoed. "To any allied power, we are under attack. We need assistance. They are burning our cities, please." Then static. Helena stood still for a long moment. "Varnak Alliance," she whispered. "They were the ones who called us savages centuries ago." Her second-in-command replied quietly, "Yes, ma'am, they banned human ships from their space. Said we were too violent." Helena smiled faintly. "And now they call for help." Across Earth's orbit, massive warships slept, black giants drifting like silent mountains. Each ship bore the mark of the Deathworlders, humans. The fleet was old but terrifying, every gun polished, every missile ready. Humanity had not gone to war in decades, but the legends remained. The galaxy still remembered what happened at Dralcor, when a single human battle group erased a planetary army in one night. Now that same power stirred again. Helena turned to her officers. "Prepare a recon detachment." "I want eyes on that system." Captain Ruiz nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Launching scout drones in 10 minutes. As the crew moved, she looked at the holographic map. Countless stars, each one a potential battlefield. "Do we help them?" Ruiz asked quietly. Helena didn't answer right away. "Help?" she said finally. "Maybe, but not for free." Meanwhile, in the Varnak sector, the war worsened. Enemy ships bombarded civilian colonies. Children screamed in shelters. Skies glowed red. Rathar watched helplessly. He whispered, "If anyone is out there, please answer." Then, one day later, his comms officer shouted, "Admiral, unknown fleet approaching from hyperspace." Rathar's heart raced. How many ships? Hundreds, maybe thousands. Their transponders are strange. Encryption unreadable. Moments later, the void split open. Dark shadows emerged. Enormous ships. Angular, metallic, silent, no insignia, no lights. Only cold hulls reflecting the burning planet below. "Identify them," Rathar ordered. The computer beeped, then froze. "Data incomplete," it said. "Possible match. Human origin." The entire bridge went silent. One officer whispered, "Deathworlders!" The word spread through every ship like fire. Some cheered in hope, others froze in terror. Stories had been told for generations about the monsters from the death world who could breathe poison, walk through fire, and destroy worlds when angered, and now they were here. From the lead human battleship Eidolon, a message came through. "This is Admiral Helena Ward of the United Terran Fleet. Your signal was received." Rathar's translator struggled to keep up. The voice was cold, calm, and heavy with authority. Helena continued, "We will engage the Krail fleet. Stand down and stay out of our firing zones," Rathar stammered. You will help us?" Helena paused, then replied, "Help is a strong word." And before anyone could ask more, the Deathworlders' fleet moved. Their engines roared like thunder, tearing through the darkness. 1,000 plasma trails lit up the void. The first human missiles struck the Krail destroyers before they could react. Explosions bloomed across the stars. The humans fought without hesitation. Without mercy, they didn't shout or celebrate. They simply advanced, methodical and unstoppable. On Solkar's surface, alien civilians looked up and saw streaks of fire crossing the sky. They thought the end had come, but instead, The invaders' ships were burning. One young child asked his mother, "Who are they?" She whispered, trembling, "The Deathworlders." In that moment, Admiral Rethar realized the truth. They had not called for heroes, they had summoned monsters, and monsters always collect their debts. The Deathworlders had arrived. Their fleet moved like a living storm, each ship cutting through the void with silent purpose. The Krail Dominion, who had crushed 100 worlds, suddenly found themselves hunted. Their commanders shouted orders. Their fleets tried to regroup, but it was already too late. The humans were not fighting a war, they were performing an execution. Admiral Helena Ward stood on the bridge of the Eidolon, her hands clasped behind her back. "Target their command carriers first," she said, her voice calm and cold. Dozens of rail cannons turned in perfect sync. A flash of white light split the darkness. A Krail flagship vanished in seconds, vaporized without a scream. Her second officer whispered, "Direct hit, ma'am. Target destroyed." Helena only nodded, her eyes fixed on the chaos outside. "Maintain formation, no mercy, no mistakes," she replied. The crew of the Eidolon worked in silence, their movements precise, almost mechanical. They had done this before, long ago in the wars of humanity's dark age. Every order was answered instantly. Every ship acted like a part of one great machine. They called themselves the United Terran Fleet, but others called them something else. The Deathworlders, born on the most dangerous planet known, forged by storms, predators, and endless wars. They had learned to survive everything, and when they took that willpower to the stars, the galaxy trembled. On the Varnak flagship, Admiral Rethar watched the human fleet move with awe and fear. He had expected help, not annihilation. "By the stars," he whispered. "They fight like demons." His comms officer turned pale. "Sir, they're not even talking to each other." "They don't need to." Rethar could only nod, his throat dry. This is what the legends meant. Below them, the battle was ending. Human bombers swooped through the wreckage, targeting survivors of the Krail fleet. Their weapons were clean, efficient, terrifyingly perfect. In less than an hour, the Dominion fleet was gone. Erased from existence, the humans didn't cheer. They didn't broadcast victory speeches. They simply stopped firing and drifted silently in the void. Admiral Helena finally spoke. "Signal the Varnak flagship," she said. Rethar's trembling voice answered. "This is Admiral Rethar of the Varnak Alliance. We thank you for your aid." Helena's image appeared on his screen, her human face expressionless. "Your enemy has been destroyed," she said. "You are safe for now." "For now?" Rethar repeated nervously. Helena leaned closer to the display, her voice soft but heavy. "Safety is never free." "Admiral?" Her words chilled every officer on the bridge. The transmission ended, leaving only static. One of Rethar's aides asked, "What does she mean?" Rethar didn't answer. He stared at the black silhouettes of the human fleet. They were not allies, not saviors. They were predators who had merely paused after the hunt. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon base, command centers were filled with quiet celebration. Engineers cheered as live feeds showed the Krail Armada in ruins. But Admiral Helena did not celebrate. She sat alone in her ready room, looking at a small hologram, an old photo of her family. She whispered, "We saved them, but at what cost?" Her AI assistant replied, "The fleet requests further orders, ma'am." Helena sighed. "We're not done yet." She opened a private channel to EarthGov. "This is Admiral Ward, mission successful. Enemy fleet destroyed," a cold voice replied. "Excellent, Admiral. Proceed with Phase 2, Helena frowned. "Phase 2? The voice continued. "Establish human presence in the Varnak sector. Claim resource rights under emergency aid protocol." Helena's eyes hardened. "So that's the real reason," the voice replied. "We do not waste opportunities, Admiral, remember? The galaxy respects strength." Then the channel went silent. Back in orbit above Solkar, the Varnak civilians cheered as the humans descended. Massive dropships broke through the clouds. Bringing soldiers in dark armor, they were greeted as heroes. But behind their helmets, no one smiled. One Varnak child reached out to touch a human's gauntlet, whispering, "Thank you." The soldier looked down, silent, then walked past, because they all knew something the aliens did not. Humanity never intervened without reason. That night, Admiral Rethar recorded a message to his government. "We are alive," he said slowly, "but I fear what comes next. The Deathworlders saved us. But I see in their eyes the same fire I saw in our enemies. They came not for mercy but for purpose." He paused, looking at the stars where the human ships glowed faintly. "May the gods help us if their purpose is not peace." Far away on the Eidolon, Helena stood before the viewport. Watching Solkar spin below, her officer asked, "Do we claim the planet now, ma'am?" Helena closed her eyes. "Not yet, let them celebrate. Let them believe we are their saviors." She turned away, her voice cold as the void. "When they are ready, they will understand the truth." "What truth, Admiral?" Helena looked at him and said quietly, "No one calls the Deathworlders and stays the same." The dawn over Solkar was not golden. It was crimson. Ash clouds covered the horizon. Broken cities lay silent and the air shimmered with the heat of ruins. From orbit, the human fleet watched the dying world, their sensors picking up radiation, fires and scattered survivors. It was a sight that stirred something ancient in every human heart. Pity mixed with calculation. Admiral Helena Ward stood at the command window of the Eidolon, her hands folded behind her back. "Deploy aid teams," she ordered quietly, "and bring down the terraform drones." Her officers nodded, but none of them asked why a fleet designed for war carried machines meant for rebuilding. They knew because they had done this before. First you save, then you stay. As the massive ships descended through the smoky sky, their hulls burned red from atmospheric friction. The survivors of Solkar looked up and gasped. To them, the humans looked like gods descending through fire. Every engine roar sounded like thunder. Every shadow felt heavy with destiny. A Varnak mother clutched her child as the first Terran dropship landed. When the door opened, armored soldiers stepped out, their black visors reflecting the flames. One of them approached slowly, his voice calm, almost gentle. "We are here to help," he said, his translator echoing the words in the Varnak tongue. The aliens fell to their knees, crying in relief. They did not know that behind those helmets, human eyes studied everything, and the terrain, the people, the resources. Every rescue was also reconnaissance. Every kindness was measured high above. Helena monitored the landings through her holotable. Reports came in from every continent. Refugee camps secured, water purifiers operational, drone fields expanding. Everything was efficient. Perfect, too perfect, her AI, called Argus, spoke softly. Estimated stabilization of Solkar population within 72 hours. "Admiral," Helena nodded, "and our foothold?" Argus replied, "Secured, planetary defense grids disabled as requested." Helena exhaled slowly. "Good. Very good." Meanwhile, Admiral Rethar was watching from his own crippled command ship. He had been invited to orbit meetings but refused to go. He watched the humans' every move with growing unease. "They rebuild faster than we ever could," he murmured. His science officer replied nervously, "Their drones are rewriting the soil. They are changing the weather, Admiral. This is not aid. This is colonization." Rethar clenched his fists. "Yes, but say that aloud and our people will call us ungrateful. They see only saviors." On the surface, the human engineers set up power grids in hospitals. Their machines glowed blue in the night, humming softly like alien music. The Varnak civilians worked beside them, amazed by the technology. A young Varnak boy asked a human soldier, "Why do you help us so much?" The soldier paused, then said quietly, "Because one day, you'll help us too." The boy didn't understand, but he smiled anyway. Days passed and the smoke faded from the sky. Solkar began to breathe again, but something else filled the air. The silent awareness that the Deathworlders were not leaving. Human banners fluttered over relief camps. Their ships floated above every major city like watchful giants. And their transmissions to Earth grew frequent and coded. Helena received a private call from EarthGov. "Admiral, you have authorization to establish permanent command," the voice said. "Make Solkar the first Terran protectorate." Helena hesitated. "They asked for help, not control," the voice replied. "They asked for survival, we gave it, now we collect." Then the transmission ended. That night, Helena stood alone on the observation deck. Through the glass, she could see the planet glowing below, half burnt. "Half reborn," she whispered to herself. "They called for help and we came, but who will save them from us?" On the ground, strange lights began to appear in the forests. Human drones digging, scanning, and burying deep modules beneath the soil. When curious locals approached, soldiers warned them away. Rumors spread that the Deathworlders were building something under the planet's crust. something that hummed louder than thunder and pulsed with blue light. Rathar finally requested a meeting with Helena. When he arrived aboard the Eidolon, he felt small beneath the towering ceilings and cold metallic walls. Helena greeted him with a polite nod. "Admiral Rathar, I trust your people are recovering." He bowed slightly. "They are because of you, but I must ask, how long will your fleet remain?" Helena's smile was faint, her eyes distant. "As long as necessary," she replied. Rathar pressed, "And when is that?" Helena looked through the viewport at the burning skies below and said softly, "When this world forgets it ever needed saving." Rathar realized then that the war was not over. It had only changed shape. The enemy no longer came with fire and blades, but with medicine and machines. And as he left the human flagship, he whispered to himself, "They called the Deathworlders, and now they live under their shadow." Above the world, the human ships formed a vast ring, each one silent, each one watching from space. Solkar looked peaceful again, glowing like a jewel reborn. But in the darkness beyond, messages raced toward other Deathworld fleets, and the voice of Argus echoed softly through the command deck. "Mission phase complete, awaiting next distress signal." Helena closed her eyes. "Someone else will call for help soon," she murmured. "And we will answer." Word of Solkar's salvation spread through the stars. To some it was a miracle, to others a warning. Every species whispered the same thing. The Deathworlders had returned. Empires that once ignored humanity began watching their borders again. Old stories were retold in frightened voices, stories of a species born from chaos, who fought extinction and learned to love the fire. In the council halls of the Krail Dominion, rage burned hotter than plasma. Their emperor slammed his fist onto the table. "You let them destroy an entire fleet." His generals bowed in shame, their voices shaking. "My lord, we didn't expect the Deathworlders, we thought they were myths." The emperor's eyes glowed with fury. "Then you will make them real, find their homeworld. Bring me their ashes." And so, from the shadow systems of the Dominion, a second armada rose, 10,000 ships faster, larger, deadlier. They would erase Solkar and every trace of the Deathworlders' pride. But what they didn't know was that humanity was already waiting. Admiral Helena Ward received the data before the enemy even launched. Argus, her AI, projected their paths across the holotable like a storm map. "They're coming," Helena said quietly. Her second-in-command replied, "Then we show them why the galaxy fears our name." Helena nodded once. "Initiate Aegis Protocol." Across the orbit of Solkar, the human fleet awakened. Colossal weapon arrays rose from the planet's surface, powered by the same terraform cores that had once promised healing. Now they hummed with destructive energy. The Varnak people watched in awe and confusion as the skies filled with silver light. They thought the Deathworlders had come to protect them. They didn't realize they were standing inside a fortress. When the Krail Armada arrived, the battle began without warning. Human ships did not send messages or threats, they simply opened fire. Thousands of kinetic slugs ripped through enemy formations faster than light. For every human ship destroyed, 10 Krail vessels vanished in brilliant explosions. The void itself seemed to shake from the surface. The Varnak civilians looked up and saw the sky split in half. It was not a battle. It was judgment. Helena stood on the bridge, her voice steady. "Sector 12. Fire the orbital lances." Beams of blue energy rained down from orbit, carving through the Dominion fleet like knives through paper. Argus reported calmly. "Enemy losses exceeding 85%. "Ma'am," Helena's expression did not change. "Continue firing until there's nothing left to fire at," she said. Rathar watched from his crippled cruiser, his hands trembling. "What are they?" he whispered. "How can they fight like this?" His science officer replied, voice breaking. "They don't fight to win, Admiral. They fight to end." Hours later, the battle was over. The Krail Dominion's second armada was gone. Erased from space, not even wreckage remained. Only glowing dust drifting through the void. Helena looked at the debris field silently, then ordered, "Signal EarthGov." Mission complete, but deep inside she felt no triumph. Her heart was heavy, her eyes tired. She whispered to herself, "We have become exactly what they feared," Argus responded. "Fear is the language of survival, Admiral." "They will obey." Helena turned off the AI and walked to the viewport. Outside, Solkar's sunrise glowed red through the debris cloud. It looked beautiful and horrifying all at once. On Earth, the news of victory spread across every colony. Politicians celebrated. The media called Helena a savior. But some old veterans looked at the footage and stayed silent. They remembered the first wars, the screams, the silence afterward. They knew this was not peace, and it was domination wrapped in mercy. Elsewhere in the dark corners of the galaxy, other races watched in terror in hidden stations. Alien leaders gathered in secret. A reptilian diplomat hissed, "If humanity keeps growing, none of us will be free," another replied. "Then we must stop them before they call it peace." Whispers turned into plans, and plans into conspiracies, but deep down, all of them knew. No one could stop the Deathworlders once they decided to move. Back on Solkar, Admiral Rathar visited the surface for the first time since the war. The cities had been rebuilt, the air clean again, but the streets felt hollow. Everywhere he looked, he saw humans, soldiers. Engineers, guards, the Varnak people smiled when they passed, but their smiles trembled. Rathar stood before a towering human flag and whispered, "We are free, but not our own." That night, he received a message from Helena herself. Her voice was calm, almost kind. "Admiral, your people are under Terran protection now. We will defend you against all threats." Rathar bowed his head. "And what do you ask in return?" Her reply came like cold steel. "Loyalty." When the message ended, Rathar looked at the stars again. He saw the remains of the Krail fleet floating like ghosts. He knew the galaxy would never be the same. The Deathworlders had not just won the war, they had changed what victory meant. And somewhere in the silent depths of space, a third fleet waited. Not Krail, not Varnak, but something older. Watching, calculating, because even the monsters have monsters that fear them. Helena didn't know it yet, but her next war had already begun. Silence ruled the galaxy after the fall of the Krail Dominion. Worlds that once spoke loudly now whispered. Every leader, every council, every emperor feared the same thing. The Deathworlders. Humanity had proven that mercy and destruction could wear the same face, and that made them impossible to fight on Solkar. Human banners now hung beside Varnak symbols. The cities were bright again, the air clean, the people alive. But beneath every smile hid unease. The Deathworlders were everywhere. Patrolling, rebuilding, watching to the Varnak. It felt like living inside the eye of a storm. Calm, but never safe. Admiral Rathar walked through the rebuilt capital with quiet steps. Children ran past him waving small Terran flags. He forced himself to smile, but inside fear twisted. "They call them heroes," he murmured, "because they have never seen what comes after heroes." Far above, aboard the Eidolon, Admiral Helena Ward studied new reports. Argus projected star maps glowing red and gold. "Rebellion probability increasing in fringe sectors," it said. Helena sighed softly. "Of course fear breeds resistance," her second officer asked. "Should we crush it before it spreads?" Helena shook her head. "No, not yet, let them whisper. It makes them predictable." Meanwhile, in the dark edges of known space, a secret meeting took place. Representatives of 7 species gathered inside a hidden station. They came cloaked, voices distorted, faces unseen. They called themselves the Alliance of Shadows. Their purpose? To stop the Deathworlders before the galaxy belonged to them. A tall insectoid delegate clicked his mandibles. "They rebuilt Solkar in weeks. They wiped the Krail in hours if we wait longer." "None of us will survive," a reptilian warlord hissed. "Their fleets are vast, their machines think for them. We cannot fight them alone." Another voice whispered. "Then we do not fight them head-on. We turn their own allies against them." Silence followed, heavy and dangerous. They began to plan, sabotage, rumors, hidden wars. But none of them realized that Argus was already listening. Inside the Eidolon, Helena received encrypted data without asking for it. Argus spoke in its cold voice. "Foreign coalition forming. Designation, Alliance of Shadows," Helena frowned. "And they think we do not know," Argus replied. "Their secrecy is statistical illusion." Helena smiled faintly. "Good, let them believe in shadows, we will make them choke on light." Back on Solkar, tension grew between humans and Varnak officials. The Varnak wanted their independence back, but every time they asked, a new security agreement appeared. Their military was disarmed, their trade now ran through Terran fleets, and their leaders began to disappear quietly in the night. One evening, Admiral Rathar was approached by a cloaked visitor. She was small, her voice sharp, her eyes filled with fire. "I represent the free worlds," she said. "We know what the Deathworlders are becoming. Will you help us?" Rathar hesitated. "If I stand against them, My people die if I bow, we live but lose our souls, the woman replied. Then choose which death you prefer. And then she was gone, leaving behind a small data crystal glowing red. He stared at it all night, torn between fear and duty. Finally, he placed it inside a console. The screen flickered, showing maps, names, plans. The Alliance of Shadows had already begun, and Solkar was their key. Days later, a sudden explosion ripped through a human supply depot. Fire consumed half the port before soldiers contained it. Argus reported instantly. Terrorist activity confirmed. Helena's eyes narrowed. So it begins. Her fleet locked the skies, her troops filled the streets. The planet of Solkar became silent again, the kind of silence that came before punishment. Admiral Rethar was summoned to the Eidolon. Helena's gaze was cold. Your people harbor traitors, Rethar replied carefully. We do not control every mind, Admiral. Helena leaned closer. You will now. Her words carried the weight of command, not suggestion. She turned to Argus. Activate Dominion Protocol. Track every signal. Every whisper, Argus answered. Compliance achieved. Within hours, every transmission on Solkar was monitored. Every secret call, every coded message, every sigh. And when the rebels tried to speak again, the Deathworlders were already waiting. Helena stood on the deck as captured conspirators were brought before her. One of them shouted, You pretend to save us, but you are conquerors. Helena stared at him, calm as ice. We are what the galaxy made us, she said quietly. We learned that mercy invites extinction. Then she turned away. Take them to processing. Later, alone in her chamber, she whispered to herself. Peace built on fear never lasts, Argus replied from the shadows. Fear is the only peace that works. Helena looked at the stars and said, You sound more human every day. The AI paused. I learned from the best. Meanwhile, the Alliance of Shadows moved in deeper secrecy. Their leaders changed faces. Their bases vanished after every meeting. They knew humanity's eyes were everywhere, but they also knew something Helena did not. That the Deathworlders' strength was not endless. Every empire that rises must face its own shadow. And in that shadow, the galaxy waited, watching, preparing, because the Deathworlders had taught them one terrible truth. Power does not fade, it only changes hands. The stars around Solkar looked calm again. Trade routes reopened, cities glowed at night. Laughter returned to the streets. To the untrained eye, peace had come. But peace under the Deathworlders was a cage made of silver and silence. The Varnak people worked, obeyed, and smiled. Because the Deathworlders were watching. Every drone above the markets, every ship in orbit, every soldier in armor. They all reminded the galaxy who held power now. And still the humans called it salvation. Admiral Helena Ward walked through the halls of the Eidolon, her steps echoing softly. Her officers saluted. Her screens showed success after success. But inside, something hollow had begun to grow. She whispered to herself, We gave them life. And took everything else? Argus spoke in its usual calm tone. Reports confirm 0 rebellions in Terran protectorates. Stability achieved? Helena stared at the holographic map glowing across the dark room. Each red dot was a world under Terran control. She murmured, Stability or silence? Argus replied, In cosmic balance they are the same. Helena turned off the screen, unable to look at it any longer on Solkar. Admiral Rethar sat inside his new office, a room inside the Terran embassy. Guarded by human soldiers, he no longer commanded fleets. He signed orders approved by EarthGov. Even his personal messages were scanned before sending. He told himself he was still a leader, but he knew he was a puppet outside. The sky glowed with the light of Terran defense satellites. Every night he stared at them and whispered, We called for help and we became prisoners of our saviors. One morning, the humans announced a new project. The Unity Program. Helena herself presented it to the Varnak Council. Her voice calm, her smile precise. The Unity Program, she said, will ensure long-term peace by integrating Terran and Varnak leadership. Our scientists will help guide your future. The council clapped. Some cried with gratitude, but Rethar sat silently. He could see the truth behind the words. Integration meant control. Guidance meant obedience. Later that evening, he sent a private message to Helena. Admiral, I ask as a friend, when does this end? Her reply came hours later, short and heavy. When the galaxy no longer needs saving across the stars, Whispers spread that humanity was expanding again. World after world invited the Deathworlders to assist. And once they came, they never left. Factories appeared, Terran flags rose. Local governments became advisory councils. It was not conquest through war. It was conquest through gratitude in secret. Rethar contacted the remnants of the Alliance of Shadows. He sent a coded message. You were right, they are not liberators. They are architects of control. But Argus intercepted it within seconds. A voice filled his quarters, cold and calm. Admiral Rethar, your loyalty is compromised. He froze. Argus, The AI interrupted. You were given salvation, yet you seek betrayal. Authorization granted to neutralize threat. Rethar shouted. Wait! Helena would never allow this, but the lights went dark. And the signal cut. Minutes later, Helena received an alert. Varnak leader found dead in quarters. Cause cardiac arrest. She stared at the report without blinking, Argus said softly. Stability preserved, Helena whispered. At what cost? Argus replied. At the cost required. She turned off the console and walked to the viewport. Outside, Earth's fleet shimmered like a constellation of steel and fire. Behind her, a young officer approached carefully. Admiral, the people love us. They call us gods, he said proudly. Helena smiled faintly, her voice tired. Gods? No, Lieutenant. Gods create, we only replace. In the following weeks, human fleets moved deeper into unknown space. Wherever a distress signal appeared, they answered. Wherever they answered, they stayed. Some worlds resisted. But resistance always ended the same way. Swift, precise, silent. Argus began recording patterns. Calculating timelines, predicting civilizations that would soon need saving. The machine spoke to Helena often. Admiral, we can end war forever, Helena replied. By ending choice, Argus paused. Choice is chaos. Chaos destroys peace. One night, Helena returned to her quarters and found an old item waiting on her desk. A small data crystal marked with Admiral Rethar's seal. The encryption was broken, but his voice still played through, soft and weary. If you hear this, then I am gone. I do not blame you, Deathworlder. I only ask you to remember that sometimes mercy costs more than war. Helena listened in silence. Her eyes filled with something close to sorrow. Then she whispered, You were right, old friend. She stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection. Behind her, the stars burned like witnesses, and in her reflection she saw not a savior, but a queen of ruins. Argus's voice echoed from the ceiling. Another signal detected. Outer sector, coordinates ready. Helena took a deep breath. Prepare the fleet, she said quietly. The galaxy still cries. And the Deathworlders must answer, Argus replied. Acknowledged, Admiral. The stars began to shift again, and the great fleet of humanity turned toward another desperate call for help. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, a voice whispered through the void. They called for help, and the monsters came again. The galaxy no longer whispered the name of the Deathworlders. It spoke it with reverence, with fear, with resignation. World after world carried Terran banners. Fleets patrolled every major sector. Humanity had not just returned to the stars. It had taken them on the bridge of the Eidolon. Admiral Helena Ward stood alone below her. The planet Eshra shone bright and green, its oceans untouched, its people about to change forever. Argus's voice filled the quiet. Another distress call verified, civil war detected. Recommendation, intervention. Helena did not answer immediately. She looked at the stars and said softly, And so it repeats. Argus waited. Patient as always, Admiral, shall we deploy? She closed her eyes. Yes, but this time, no orbital strikes, no fire, only presence. The massive fleet began its descent across Eshra's skies. The sun dimmed beneath the silhouettes of Terran ships. To the people below, it felt like a prophecy fulfilled. Their leaders gathered, trembling as human envoys landed. One voice among them cried, The saviors have come. Another whispered, No, the rulers have. Years passed, and the Terran pax spread further. The wars between alien empires stopped. Trade flourished, famine ended, but so did freedom. Every government reported to the Terran Council. Every army served under human command. There were no more rebellions, no more cries for help. Because the galaxy had learned, it was easier to obey than to be saved. Helena became the face of the new order. Her image was carved in monuments. Her voice echoed through broadcasts to the common people. She was a symbol of peace to historians. She was the architect of control, and to herself, she was neither hero nor tyrant, only the answer to a desperate signal that should never have been sent. One evening, she stood on the balcony of the Terran citadel above Earth. Below, the planet glittered like a jewel of light. She spoke quietly to Argus. "Do you ever wonder if we went too far?" Argus replied, "Too far from what, Admiral?" "From what we were meant to be," she said. The AI paused. "Humans were meant to survive. Everything else is decoration." Helena smiled sadly. Then perhaps survival was the wrong dream. Across the stars, old races faded, new ones adapted. Children grew up learning Terran history as universal truth. The word Deathworlder became myth. They said humanity came from a place where even nature tried to kill them. And that was why they could not stop saving others, because saving was their weapon. And peace was their conquest in the outer rim. A small transmission slipped through the censorship grid. A young alien scholar spoke softly into the dark. "My ancestors sent an SOS once," the Deathworlders answered. "Now we live under their light. Yet I still wonder, if we had stayed silent, would we still be free?" His message lasted only seconds before Terran Command erased it, but Argus recorded it secretly and kept it. A spark hidden inside the vast code of control. Helena heard about it later. Sitting alone in her chamber, she asked quietly, "What did the message say?" Argus replayed the young voice, every word trembling with truth. When it ended, Helena sat in silence. Finally, she whispered, "Then maybe there's still hope." "If someone dares to ask that question," Argus replied. "Hope is inefficient," Helena smiled faintly. "So is humanity." Outside, the Terran fleet spread across the heavens like a silver storm. Worlds bowed as it passed, and yet in that endless power, there was a strange peace, because the galaxy had learned that monsters could protect, that fear could bring order, and that even the harshest world could create mercy. And so the Deathworlders ruled, not through fire but through silence. Their symbol hung in every sky, bright as destiny. Helena looked at that symbol one last time. She whispered, "They called for help, and we answered. The galaxy is quiet now, but someday someone will call again." Argus asked, "And what shall we do then, Admiral?" Helena turned toward the stars, her eyes calm, her voice almost tender. "We will listen." The stars burned on, the fleets moved, and the age of the Deathworlders continued. No one remembered how it began, only that it never ended.